Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this beautiful, beautiful evening. It's full moon, or technically it's full moon tomorrow night, but it's a super moon. And it is the brightest tonight and tomorrow night here in the Southern Hemisphere. So that is why I'm late tonight. I apologize that I'm late, but I was sitting outside connecting with this beautiful mother moon, this magical moon that we have flying with us tonight. And she really is a truth-speaking moon, and she's a moon of the way that she's presented herself to me is she's here to reframe things. So anything that looks like it's one thing, she wants to show it from a different perspective. So a moon of illumination, which brings a truth-speaking and a sort of connecting with getting real. We live in so much illusion. I had a reading this afternoon, and the guidance that came forward is that many of us just don't want to break up with the illusion of how we see things, the illusion of how we feel with things. And if you feel the calling to find truth tonight, I would recommend going and sitting outside and talking to the moon. And I know I sound crazy when I say that, but that's fine. A little bit of crazy is good for all of us. I went outside and I asked her a question, and within a minute, the question that came flooding back to me was a completely different question, and really settled my heart completely. And the message I got was I had asked a question, and the answer that came back to me is stop focusing on that. It's not what you want. Yeah? If you keep asking questions around what you don't want, you will manifest what you don't want. So change the question to what you do want. And this is stuff I know, stuff I teach. The moon just taught it to me in a very strong way again. So she is a truth-speaking moon and a moon of reframing. So welcome to tonight, and that certainly sets the tone for what the readings are going to be like tonight, I think, are ones of certainly getting us to reframe and look at what is truthful for ourselves, for the world, what needs to be illuminated. I took a beautiful photo, and in the photo there's, yes you can, although you're one of my favorite crazies, there were some orbs, and so Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Raphael, and Archangel Muriel all stepped forward as archangels that are kind of supporting the sort of truth-speaking energy, the illumination energy, the reframing energy that's coming forward from the moon. When I sat to connect with the crystal for tonight, there was no sacred geometry pattern that came forward other than the moon itself being the circle, and so working with that. And the crystal that came forward to ask me to talk about is none other than one of my favorites, and this is called a black moonstone. Very difficult to find, not very easy to find, so you can see a lot of the lights on it. Moonstone is normally a white crystal. It's got sort of a black and grayish sort of sediment to it, and obviously connects with the sensuality and femininity of the moon, and the intuition and the goddess likeness of the moon. The moon is really the holder of all truth. I was away for a weekend with my boyfriend, and we had a lovely weekend away, and we were talking about how powerful the sun is, and the sun is the creator of all, but the moon is the holder of all. And it was such a beautiful reflection of this feminine energy that holds everything. The black moonstone is a form of labradorite. Labradorite is a beautiful stone, a healing stone, and the black moonstone is a version of labradorite, and really holds the same energy of sensuality and intuition, and governs the holding of all truth, as we've been talking about. But the black moonstone has a deeper energy. It takes us deeper into the unconscious than the normal moonstone does. So the black moonstone has come forward as the supporting crystal for this week. It's a beautiful, beautiful, one of my absolute favorites. Anybody who's worked with me knows that I will talk about the black moonstone, and it's one of my channeling crystals. It sits here in my healing room, and I work with it when I work with people. So she certainly is one of the crystals closest to my own heart and my own spirit. Yeah. Okay, so let's start off tonight with the message from Spirit. We'll get 3 cards. What is it that my guides and our guides and the guides want us to know are the messages for everybody at this point in time, and then I'll get into doing the one-on-one readings. And like I said, we'll focus on them from an illumination perspective. What do you need to know the truth about tonight? It's a truth-speaking session. Yes, please. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so for those of you who've never joined before, I'm going to be pulling 3 cards. The first card is what do we need to pay attention to this week. The second card is what support is available for you this week. And the third card is what opportunities exist this week. Right. So I'll be putting up a link this week for pre-orders for my new cards. So if you're enjoying the new cards and you'd like your very own set to work with, I'll be putting up a link for the pre-orders. Right, so let us see. So the card has come forward in terms of what do we need to pay attention to this week? What do we need to see? And it's a card, you can't control it all, let go and trust the process. I'm not holding it very straight, am I tonight? You can't control it all, let go and trust the process. So if you can read it there, but this is beautiful snowflake that's on there. And the reason for the snowflake is that when we have a look at the sort of sacred geometry symbol here, which is the seed of life, which is about creation, and we start looking at snowflakes. Snowflakes, as we know, the beauty of them is each one is unique, each one is beautiful, each one is infinite, and no one really knows how to sit down and make a snowflake, really. We can do paper cutouts and all those sorts of things, but I'm talking about the true snowflakes that exist and sort of intricacies, the beauty that exists in them. And snow is magical. It's got this magical ability to fall, and it creates, it's this transformative element. And really, if we understand the snowflake, it's kind of holding water consciousness in place. It's moved from rain to something a little bit more formed, that it's just going to become something a bit flowier when it hits the ground. And it's an ever-evolving, ever-moving dynamic snow. It's just a constant transformation. It's impossible to keep it. It's impossible to replicate it. It's impossible to do anything with it. It is just unique in its beauty. And so when we start to look at this, and the message is coming forward is let go and trust the process, is about noticing how life has its own flow. It has its own dynamics, and to work with it, and that you can't control it. Anybody knows you cannot control the weather. You cannot control the snow. You cannot control the beauty of it. It is going to happen the way it happens, and it's going to flow the way it flows. And only when we work with it and enjoy the process of it do we connect in with it. I mean, if I was just saying that I was on this weekend away with my boyfriend this weekend, and we were in this beautiful little, tiny little cottage, I suppose we'll call it, for lack of a better word, villa unit, right on the river. In South Africa, we've got these rivers, and it's the Yuksko River. And when we arrived, the river was in one form. And the next morning, we woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning with this noise. We couldn't understand what the noise was. And we went outside, and the river had risen like 2 meters and was right up above by the wall by our units, and was flowing at such a rapid rate. There's nothing you can do. It's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to flow. And really, all the rain that we've been having just caught in there and just caused this river to flood and to flow. And by the next morning, once the rain stopped, it came back to normal. And it's such an amazing sort of thing when we look at the snow and this water and this consciousness of how life will just flow the way it's going to flow. And it's our job to witness, to participate, to support, to connect, to go with it, to stay safe when we need to stay safe, to engage when we don't, and to play with life on life's terms will reduce the amount of stress that we feel significantly. And so what do we need to pay attention to this week? The message is coming forward most significantly is, where do you need to go with the flow? Where do you need to stop resisting how life is? Where is it that please pay attention to the way things are, but stop resisting it and thinking it shouldn't be that way? How do we engage with it? And this doesn't mean just letting it do whatever it wants to do. It's working with. You are not in control. It's the biggest illusion we have. The only thing we have is the ability to notice how we want to respond to whatever is going on around us. And when we take responsibility for our response to life, that is where the truth is. That is where the opportunity for transformation is, and that is where the magic lies. We can't change that which is on the outside of us, but we can certainly change our response and adapt and alter that. So you can't control it all. Let go and trust the process. Now, the card that then comes forward in terms of what support is available for us this week is rest. Take a break, indulge yourself. Again, we see this water in the background. And when we have a look at this card, we see this sort of idea of almost being on holiday, this feeling of being on holiday. This card is not about being on holiday, sadly, although many of us would like to be on holiday. And in the sort of messages that I've been doing, the remote readings that I've been doing, where I've been connecting people to the messages coming forward from their higher self, this card has come forward about 80% of the time. And the reason for it is that it's asking us to relax. The anxiety levels and the stress levels for us at this point in time are off the charts. Nearly every single client that walks into my room is anxious, stressed, worried, fearful, out of control in some way, shape, or form. And when you start to notice it, 90% of the stress is internalized stress. It's stress that's created through resistance to life, through the fact that we think things should be different to how they are. And so we can see the relationship to the card. You can't control it all. Let go and trust the process. And it's not to say that the stress isn't real. It's internalized. We feel it as truth. We feel it as the experience, and we think it's real. But it's coming from resistance. It's coming from the fact that we think something should be different to how it is. We think money should be different. We think politics should be different. We think the weather should be different. We think the traffic should be different. The ability to relax and accept and embrace life with the way it is empowers us to engage with life from a restful place, which means our bodies come to a state of rest. So this card is about how much illness we have in the world because we're in a state of stress. And when our bodies can rest and relax, then the adrenaline releases in our body, and then we are so much more calmer. And here's the trick: we're so much more resourceful, and we are so much more creative. I wish I had a magic, simsalabim, or the magic cure for this, because if we could do this, the world would be a much calmer place. But this is what each of us is here to do, is to notice our own state of anxiety and stress and resistance, not to judge it, not to think we're doing anything wrong, but to notice, what are we in resistance to, and how can I bring my body back to a place of calm so I can rest in life. You are safe and all is okay. And being able to work with life on life's terms. Remember, with the full moon, I said it's a truth-speaking conversation, and that's really what the guides are showing, is that there really is this need for us to own the part we play in the anxiety of life, in the stress of life, and to notice what we can do around this. So the card that comes forward then in terms of what opportunity exists for this week is detach from anything holding you back. Detach from anything holding you back. So if life is happening on life's terms, and our role is to connect in with our own acceptance of life and notice, what is it that we want to serve in this? How do we want to flow with it and create? What is it we want to do? And if we're from a place of relaxation, we can do that. Then what is it? What are we attached to that continuously creates misery in our own lives, which continuously creates resistance, anger, stress, anxiety, fear, worry? None of these things are good. They are all bad. They're calling us to pay attention to our own attachments. And so I might be attached to the idea of somebody loving me. I might be attached to the idea of needing a certain amount of money. I might be attached to an idea of what is right in the world and that the way the government's working is wrong. I might be attached to a certain flow of how things should work. Certainly this morning I got up again. I left this morning to take my daughter to school, and very quickly I realized there is no ways I was getting over the highway this morning. For some reason, the traffic was just the way the traffic was this morning, was not flowing. And so we made an alternative plan and took her halfway for her to walk across a bridge across the highway and for her father to fetch her. And so the ability to detach from it, because my attachment is I must get her to school, I must follow these, I must do it this way, there shouldn't be traffic, but this is going to keep you very stressed. And so being able to flow with life on life's terms and to notice your own resourcefulness in this, and notice your own resistance to the way life is. I certainly can tell you from my own experience, it's a daily thing for me to pay attention to what am I resisting, what am I attached to. And most of the time we can be creating our own misery. I certainly know that I create a lot of my own misery. And so what misery are you creating for yourself? Right, so there we have it. I told you it's a truth-speaking conversation with Spirit tonight. They very intensely want to keep us honest. And it's not about a blame and it's not about a judgment. I just want to check something here. Right, so let us see who would like some readings tonight. Yes, who wants to get a reading? If you would like a reading, please ask. For those of you that have not been online before, the way it works is I get intuitively drawn to those whose readings are going to serve the greatest good, whoever is online. So if you don't get chosen, please don't think you're not loved. That's not what it means at all. And listen to other people's readings, because often there is something in there that's most useful for you. Also keep asking. I don't scroll up and go and relook. So really whoever asks will get. Right, Lindsay Mason, please may I have a reading. All right, Lindsay, let us connect in here and see what your guides would like to tell you. Like I said, if you're ready for truth, I think tonight's the night that you can ask for a reading. If you don't want to face your truth, I'm not sure I would ask tonight. All right, Lindsay, the message is coming forward for you. That wasn't meant as like a threat in any way. It's just a statement that's coming forward. All right, Lindsay, the guides are saying approach with lightness, approach with lightness. Lindsay, the way that your female guide comes forward is she comes forward with this very sort of headmistress kind of look. You know, if you imagine the headmistress of a school and the headmistress is kind of responsible for everybody and everything and the way they go. And if we took the sort of typical archetype of a headmistress, which doesn't mean all headmistresses are this way, I'm looking at it from an archetypal perspective, there's a very strict sort of process. My job is to keep everyone and everything in line and to make sure that everything goes according to plan. And your guides are saying that this is almost a little bit of the sort of energetic blueprint that you come forward with in your life, and certainly in your relationships and with the people, is this sort of idea of keeping everything in line and getting everything to line up and to work according to a plan, a little bit like the headmistress in your life. This is not right, this is not wrong, this is not good, this is not bad. What it is, though, is something that causes you quite a lot of anxiety and quite a lot of worry and brings quite a lot of heaviness into your life. And so your guides kind of very jokingly and very playfully come forward and they said, what if you shifted from headmistress to, what's the word they wanted to give me? So if you were no longer headmistress, you'd become, they really are teasing you quite significantly. So they're saying you'd become like sort of the rebel. And if we could engage a little bit of a rebel into the headmistress, which means, you know, a little bit of like, what rules can be broken? What are the rules that are, you know, they're useful in times of extreme problems, but not necessarily always useful. So some rules can be broken. Now, we're not talking about all rules, and we're not talking about rules that are there to keep you safe, but there's some rules that are just, you know, like, you know, Some rules are old. Some rules have been there for a long time. Some rules have existed just because there's a rule. We don't know why the rule is what it is. And so they're kind of asking you from a very playful perspective, what rules can be broken in your life? What rules do you need to break up within your life for you to lighten up, for you to approach your life and your relationships with more lightness? What are the rules that are maybe ones that are holding you back from the joy that you want in your life? So you have it, Lindsay. I hope that makes sense for you. Let's see what it is that the guides want to do next. Okay, Antoinette Claassen, may I have a reading? It's my first time here. Yes, you may have a reading. It's your first time here. As I said, it seems to be a truth-speaking evening, so let's see what it is that your guides would like to tell you tonight. All right, Antoinette. Okay, and a card fell. Let me just see what it is. Okay, so there's 2 cards that are here for you. All right, so the first card, the card that I pulled, and then there's a card that fell out. The card that I pulled out is Call Back Your Spirit. Call back your spirit. The card that then came forward after that is We are all connected, you are not alone. We are all connected, you are not alone. Okay, all right, Antoinette, the way they want me to describe this to you, and you haven't been online with me before, so you probably haven't heard me talk about some of this stuff. So it's well worth talking about it, especially saying at this full moon. We tend to live in half versions of ourselves, or in smaller versions of ourselves than we really are. We don't allow ourselves to turn ourselves up to full volume. If you imagined a light switch on you, like, sort of a dial, if you imagine sort of a dimmer switch, if you imagine being at full voltage, switched on and at full voltage, most of us would illuminate ourselves in a magnificent way. We'd speak our truth, we'd be living our talents, we'd be expressing ourselves in the most authentic way, we'd be taking up space without being dramatic about it. We wouldn't be trying to dominate others, but we'd be very comfortable in getting attention. This is what it means to live in your full power. And most of us dim it. We dim it for approval. We dim it for fear of rejection. We dim it because we're scared. We dim it because we were taught to be less when we were children. We dim it because when we got attention before we were hurt, and any of these things. And what happens is through our life, whenever we're standing at full grace and something happens that causes us pain, a piece of our spirit exits our body and it disconnects. Not disconnects in the sense that it's not available, just disconnects from being in the body and kind of hangs around us. And so we carry all these pieces with us, which can be quite heavy, but we're not allowing it to be embodied because we're scared most of the time. And the message is coming forward for you and for everybody tonight is tonight's a great night to sit with the moon and say, what am I dimming because I'm scared? What part of me am I resisting because I'm fearful? And to call that part back and say, I'm ready to shine bright. That I'm ready to heal that wound. And that I don't need to play small so that others feel safe. So that others feel okay. I call back my spirit and I shine bright. And in doing this, the message that fell out was really about supporting you. That often when we face our fears, we think we're quite alone. We feel that we are quite, isolated and that the world is against us in some way, shape or form sometimes. And this is a message to say that there are so many loving supporters around you that want to support you in being the best version of you. And so it is also a message to show that there's so many people online here tonight that are all experiencing the same thing, this dimming ourselves down and allowing yourself to call back your spirit and to shine bright. And to forgive yourself for not. To forgive ourselves for our own fears and to allow ourselves to step into that. So it's time to shine bright, Antoinette. It's time to call back your spirit. And you can literally sit and just use those words. I call back my spirit. I call back my spirit. I command my spirit to come back to me. I am ready to shine bright. There we go. I hope that that makes sense for you. Tracy Michelle Aubrey. Right, Tracy Michelle Aubrey. Hope to get a message tonight. Well, you're going to get a message, my darling. Let's see what your guides would like to tell you, Tracy Michelle Aubrey. All right. Oh, what beautiful messages, eh? So please listen to the messages that come forward for others, because most of the time it's the profound messages that are in there for you too. All right, Tracy. Tracy, the message that's come forward for you is speak your truth. There's one card that comes out of this pack consistently. It's this one. I can't think of a reading I've done recently, especially not on a Monday night, where this card has not come up. And so it's a very powerful card for all of us at the moment. Remember, I spoke about this moon being a truth-speaking moon. And so the emphasis here is not on the speaking part, but on the truth-speaking part. What is the truth that needs to be faced? And again, the guides seem quite insistent on giving some rituals tonight. One of the rituals that could be done tonight is taking a piece of paper and looking at a certain situation in your life and then saying, what is my truth? What is the truth? What is their truth? Whatever. And just doing what's called automatic writing. Automatic writing is where you sit with a piece of paper, you write a question, you sit back, you hold the pen, and you let the pen flow, and you'll notice what message comes forward for you there. Sorry, I'm looking distractedly because there is a spider walking across the floor in my room. If I have had spiders all around me all weekend, and now I've seen another spider here. So spiders are profound spiritual animals. They hear about the web of life and the intricacies of life, and it was walking across whilst we were talking. So Tracy, to sit down and to notice what is the truth, and for all of you to sit down and possibly do that exercise. What is my truth? What is the truth? What is their truth? What is the truth I need to face? What do I need to see? What do I need to hear? What do I need to know? And if I was able to know the truth, what would the truth be? Any one of these versions of these questions becomes a beautiful thing to write into. Now, Tracy, when it's coming up for you, the way your male guide in particular comes forward is he says, there is a truth about your gifts that you do not want to face. Your spiritual gifts, your spiritual abilities, your ability to work with the divine, the fact that you have the ability to see and hear and feel what is going on for people. And this is a gift that you have. Not that this gift is better or worse than anybody else's gifts, but you have a resistance to embracing this. There's a discounting or a dismissing of the gifts that you have. And so if you had to sit down tonight and go, what are the truths about my gifts? What do I need to see in me that I'm ignoring? Which gifts of mine am I not using? And it's a big year for stepping into your grace and stepping into your power and using your voice to express your gifts. The truth of this is that you're a healer soul and you have profound gifts to help the world heal at this point in time. The specifics and the details of your gift is something that you need to embrace and find. And I hope you can even see, as I'm talking, how much lighter the room is getting for you. It's amazing for me how the room, I mean, I don't change anything in the room, and it shifts in light as we go through this. Some of you may have seen that when we're doing these readings, as the light seems to shift itself and do what it needs to do. Tracy, you are a light worker. There are many of us, and it's not to say somebody else isn't, but it's something you need to hear, and facing those truths are really important for you tonight. So I hope that that makes sense for you, Tracy. Looking forward to seeing and hearing from you. And for those of you that are looking for ways to embrace your gifts, I run some very, very cool training programs, and one of them, which is the sort of, somebody calls it the MBA of the spiritual world. I think it's quite a kind way to describe it. It's called Lifting the Veil. Some of the people on this call, on this call, is done Lifting the Veil, and it's one of the most profound. It's an 8-month course, and you learn how to work with all aspects of spirit and find yourself in there. So glad, Tracy. It's time to connect with them. Yeah. All right, Navashni. Today is my mom and dad's wedding anniversary, and she would love a reading. Perfect. Let us see, Navashni. And there it comes up again. That's validation that we're going to be doing it. Let us see what message comes forward for your mom tonight on their anniversary. Happy anniversary. I hope that you remember to choose to love each other the way you chose to love each other when you met. I think that's always one of the hardest things in relationships, is waking up every day and saying, today I choose to love you. Right, so this is one of the cards in the deck that I don't have the new card in it. It's coming, and I'll tell you what's different about it now. But the card that's come forward is Fire the Critic. Fire the Critic. The reason I say it's not the new card is in the new card, this is like a beautiful orangey reddy kind of color, this balloon. And if we see it, there's this guy holding this beautiful balloon, and there's this shadow and coming up and popping the balloon, getting rid of all the fun. I mean, balloons are fun, and they're lovely, and they're joyful, and they just, they represent party and fun. And I'm not going into what they do to the planet, when I'm not talking about it from that, I'm talking about the metaphor of them. And then we have this inner voice, and sometimes an outer voice, that just bursts the bubble, just continuously bursts the bubble. And so Navashni's mom, I don't know your name, it's not on here, the message is coming forward is to notice the joy and find the fun and see where there's a criticism of yourself and of others that may be bursting the bubble, that may be stopping things from being as joyful as they could be. This is not saying you're doing anything wrong, it's just noticing. Sometimes we think criticism is a form of love. I see many parents doing this. Is their way to get their children back in line because they love them is to criticize them. And it's a harsh energy to come forward. And so it's noticing, and it seems to be most particularly with yourself. So I hope you can hear this message with all the love that it's given to you, because it's not saying, it's not to criticize that you're criticizing yourself. It's to notice this and say, okay, if I could change this script, and this is a really important thing for anybody who's listening, is that critic that lives inside of us, is constantly belittling us and telling us everything we're doing wrong, is to go and find a cheerleader. And you're going to appoint an inner cheerleader that tells you everything that's going right. Good job. Well done. I think you're amazing. Da, 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 da. And to appoint the inner cheerleader. And so under this full moon tonight, fire the critic and appoint the cheerleader. Life will be a lot more fun. There you go. I hope that makes sense for you, my love. Right. Let us see who is next here. Nancy Ann Suba. May I have a reading tonight? Questions about my love life. Of course. Let's see what comes forward for you about your love life tonight. All right. 2 cards. 2 cards. All right. Nancy Ann, can you tell me, are you in a relationship or you're wanting a relationship? If you're online, if you could answer me, because seems to be something coming forward and I'm not sure which way to go. All right, Nancy Ann, if you're there for me, are you in a relationship or you're looking for a relationship? or both, which is also fine. Yeah, this is a place of love, right? Okay, Nancy, and I'm going to start talking about it. If you can answer that question, pleasure, Navashni. I hope that makes sense for your mom. Nancy, and the first message that came forward is allow your life to unfold. And the second message that came forward is approach with lightness. Allow your life to unfold and approach with lightness. When you notice these two cards, there's something very familiar about both of them. I mean, we've had approach with lightness come forward earlier tonight. But when we have a look at this card, we get this sort of dandelion, and then we get the feather. And the dandelion, okay, in one. The dandelion and the feather are both sort of airy, if that makes sense. They work with the air. If we imagine the sort of dandelion, we blow those feathers, those little pollen out into the air, and the air takes it. And we notice that the sort of feathers come down through the air from the birds or whoever wants to send us the feathers, and they float down. And so this idea of floating comes up. And there's a couple of ways that they're wanting to bring forward messages for you, Nancy Ann, around this. The first is that when we are in a relationship, how do I describe what they're showing? So they want to bring this floatiness. Now, this floatiness can mean that we are not grounded in the relationship, is the way they're wanting to talk about it. So we're not physically getting involved in the relationship. It means that we're thinking about the relationship, we're floaty about the relationship, but we're not in it. A little bit of like, thinking about going for a swim and then going for a swim are two different things. Thinking about getting on an airplane and getting on an airplane, two different things. Thinking about the relationship and being in the relationship are two different things. And the messages that are coming forward for tonight is there's this tendency for you to be a bit more in the air of the relationship rather than the grounding of the relationship, and to get involved. Now, this could be a commitment thing, this could be an investment thing, this could be a decision thing. This is about, if you're going to be in something, be in it. It's never a lifetime commitment. I'm going to say that again. It's never a lifetime commitment or across lifetimes. Is that you can be fully invested in something, fully committed to something, and not attached to it. This is a very, very difficult spiritual paradox for our mind to understand, that it can be fully committed, fully invested, and detached. Detached means I don't have to control it, I don't have to make it work my way. I can be in it and invested in it. And when I'm invested in it, I can decide, do I like it? Does it feel good? So the decision to get into the relationship, to invest in the relationship, to participate in the relationship, holds you outside of it, and then you're not experiencing it. So the message I'm getting very strongly is get involved. Get involved in your relationship. Get in. Get in. Go for the swim. Stop thinking about swimming. Swim. If you don't like swimming, you can get out. But you won't know until you're in it. And so there's like this, like I almost get given this message like to give you a nudge. Go for it. Get involved. Get involved. Get involved in it. Right. I hope that makes sense for you. And then trust your hearts and trust your boundaries. And if you're in something that you don't want to be in, you can get out. Because you've got to get in to know if you want to get out. You can't decide before. Right. What a beautiful message. Okay, how are you doing? I'm in all sorts of chaos. Oh, I haven't seen you for a little while, my darling, all the way. Are you still in Hawaii? All right, all sorts of chaos. Chaos is good. Not always bad. Not always fun, but not always bad. All right, Kahal, let us see what your guys want to tell you tonight. All right, Kahal, the cards that's come forward for you, or the message come forward for you is choose to trust. Choose to trust. When you notice at the top of this card, there is what we call the hexahedron, which is the cube. And the cube is all about stability. The cube is all about strength. The cube is all about groundedness. The cube is all about, feeling strong, feeling brave. And so when this message comes forward, choose to trust, it's this free fall. It's knowing that things, and when you say things are in chaos, it's exactly what they show me. It's like everything's up in the air. Everything is transforming. You asked for change, and change is happening. So and when change happens, things go into chaos. It can't help but be disturbed. Disturbance causes transformation. Disturbance causes chaos. And the chaos in itself causes a disruption that allows you to find different resources in yourself and different parts of yourself and different ways of navigating forward. And so in that sort of disruptive period, it's really important to stay connected to your voice. It's important you find a connection back to your voice. I think you sing, if I remember correctly. They show me you singing. There's a need to stay connected to singing. There's a really important process that gives you. It's important to trust your voice. It's important to trust your heart. And it's important to trust that that chaos does not mean it's the wrong path. Many people think that if they've chosen the right path, it all is just seamlessly ahead of you. This is very, very seldom the truth of what I've seen experience with many of my clients. When spiritually they choose the path that they need to choose, chaos becomes your friend, because it's no longer playing safe. It's no longer fitting in. It's no longer conforming. It's no longer doing what other people want you to do. It's no longer living according to your pain. It's now living according to your heart and your truth. And so choosing to trust that there's nothing, that you're not doing anything wrong, but choosing to trust your voice and to find your way back to your voice. This would be something that's really important in the reading they're given. And it's not to trust others, it's to trust you. It's to trust your truth. Very seldom are others going to say you're doing the right thing for yourself. It's just not always the way it works. I still have people thinking that daily, that like, how am I making the choices that I'm making? But it's the choices that serve me, and they are disruptive for many people. So living in your truth and trusting yourself, very, very important at this point in time. Please make sure you stay connected to your voice. They're saying, I can't say that enough, but also that you create time for meditation, for reflection, for quietness, so that you can find your stillness in the chaos, and that will be useful for you. You're not going to find stillness outside of you. The stillness is going to come in the foreground. Lucy says, loving the little tweets in the background. Well, the background is a tweet happening in my space. Oh, it's my parrot. Can you hear my parrot? That would be lovely. Linda Gallagher. Oh, how are you, Linda? So good to see you and connect with you here tonight. All right, let's see what your guides would like to tell you tonight, Linda. Ah, it's the parrot. There we go. I block it. I don't even hear it. All right, Linda, let's see what your guides would like to tell you tonight, love. All right, Linda, the card that's come forward for you is perspective. What is small is big, and what is big is small. What is small is big, and what is big is small. This is a card that is often asking, what are we focusing on? What are we paying attention to? And there's sometimes some things we're paying attention to that are bringing up a lot of emotion for us. But and so the emotion makes it feel big, but actually it's not really a big deal at all. And then there's some things going on that we're thinking about and we're not facing any emotion about it. And so it feels quite small, but actually that's something you're avoiding, and it needs to be paid attention to, because that emotion is something that's really kind of important. And so Linda is a little bit of like, what are you feeling and what are you thinking about, and noticing an opportunity for integration with this. When they show me, and particularly the way your female guide comes forward, she tends to show me, how do I reflect this? She tends to show me like a tendency for you to pick up a little bit of information and make that a very big deal. And when you make that a very big deal, it kind of causes quite a lot of anxiety and pain for you. But when you sit and you think about it, if you got more information and you gathered more data about it, it actually wouldn't be as big a deal as you think it is. And there's some particular areas in your life, like, I mean, I suppose this is the statement we often make, making mountains out of molehills. So where are you making something into a bigger deal than it needs to be? And this doesn't mean that they're discounting what's going on for you. It's just more a sort of distraction technique, because there are some things going on in your life that need to be paid attention to, Linda. There's some things that need to be faced. There's a particular dynamic in your life. It's a particular area in your life. I'm not sure if it's linked to where you're living or whether it's linked to finances, but there's something about those two aspects that do need to be focused on, and there are big deals going on in your life, but you're distracting yourself with a whole lot of other things, and that's keeping you separate from facing what needs to be faced. And so if you sit down and you ask yourself, what do I need to face? What do I need? What is something in my life that needs attention, that I'm not giving attention to? You'll be able to find what that is and focus on that a little bit. Right, so, and you can deal with what they're saying. Right, let us see who is next. Ingrid Borgelt. May I have a reading, please, Taryn? Yes, Ingrid Borgelt. Let's see what your guides would like to tell you tonight. All right, Ingrid, the message that's coming forward for you is feel it, deal with it, heal it. Feel it, deal with it, heal it. Right, so when you see this, you see like the ashes here. I'm not sure if you can see in this light. Let's see if you can see it. And you see this beautiful rose growing out of these ashes, yeah? And so this is like a cycle of finding the beauty in the pain, I suppose, is the simplest way that I can express what this card is often about. It's the phoenix from the flame. It's a sort of idea of metamorphosis and transformation. And so when your guides come forward, they're kind of showing me that there seems to be something that's gone on in the last sort of 2 to 3 years in your life, that there is a perspective of anger or resistance to it, that it's wrong and it's not really what you wanted to happen, or what should have happened, or what's okay to happen, in whichever version of that. But within there, there's a gift. Within there, there's something that is on offer to you. And when you can go beyond the anger and go into the sadness and the loss and the difficulty and the sort of hurt that has existed there, you can recapture, I was talking about calling back your spirit, is you can recapture parts of yourself that you lost, not only there, but in previous instances in your life where there was a similar experience. And so there's an opportunity to recapture yourself, to reconnect with the little girl in you. If I had to give it to you in this way, if I had to describe it, hopefully in a way that can connect you to it, is that I had a client here earlier today, and there's something that keeps repeating itself in her life, and it keeps making her really angry and upset. And when we were doing the reading, it was this thing that had gone on in her life again, was taking her back to a time where she had felt very lost and hurt as a young girl, 14, 15. And, so whenever this got triggered, that young girl came forward to try and help deal with it. And what was actually on offer was her loving the 14 or 15-year-old in her and giving herself the support and care that she needed through that journey, and reframing her own story to be something that was more empowering and more useful for her. They asked me to share the story because it feels like there's a similarity for you, and in whatever's gone on in this, like I said, the last 2 to 3 years that they're showing me, there's an offer to recapture something, to offer yourself some love, and to reconnect with some parts of yourself that are quite important, and that when you feel it, you can go and find that and you can deal with it, and when you deal with it, you will be healed from it. Remember, healing requires feeling. It does not require thought, and everything we feel is a bit like a wave in the ocean. It will subside. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes, so we don't need to fear it being there forever. So I hope that makes sense for you, Ingrid. That is the message that is coming forward for you. Right. Nita. Nita. Let us see what your guys would like to tell you tonight. All right, Nita. All right, Nita. Everything serves. Everything serves. One of my favorite cards in terms of the images of it, because you see this guy with I suppose he may feel a bit perplexed or a bit awaiting or whatever it is, but there's these puzzle pieces falling down. And the sacred geometry symbol, he has the seed of life, which is all about creation. And so this idea of like these pieces of life coming forward for us to create whatever it is that we are here to create. And this very much aligns with Ingrid. Ingrid, if you're still listening, they amplifying the message that comes forward for you, is that everything serves you. Everything, even the things we don't want, are puzzle pieces. And sometimes we collect the puzzle piece and we don't know where to put it, and we don't know what to do with it, and we don't know why it's happening. And 5 years later, 10 years later, suddenly there's a perspective, and suddenly we know what that piece of the puzzle was about. And so trusting that everything serves in the way that it's meant to, and that when you are, when it's a time for you to see it the way you need to see it, and to embrace it and to know what to do with it,